Welcome to All the F Words,
a podcast where two writer friends, nearly 30 years apart, explore everything we give an F about. I'm Gabi Moskowitz.
And I'm Joanne Green. On each episode of All the F Words, we'll focus on a theme starting with the letter F. Things like frequency, finances, and felines.
We'll share stories from our lives and our distinct generational perspectives and look to the experts for insights and ideas.
Today we're going to talk about free time. I'm imagining you laughing at the concept, Gabi. Do you recall pre-parenthood having something called free time?
Yeah, I don't really remember. I have vague memories of what free time is or was. I don't know.
Well, it's something that will be, I assure you. You will have free time again at some point in your life.
Okay.
Actually, because this time of the year is insane, and Fred, our producer, and who also happens to be my husband, and I are about to leave the country for a few weeks. We are going to be taking some free time away from All the F Words. I'm guessing that you haven't heard every episode of All the F Words, so this should give you some time to catch up on any F words you might have missed.
Free time is defined as time when you do not have to work, study, or, for instance, take care of someone else, and you can do what you want. It's just not really a concept for me these days, I would say.
Or it is just a concept. It's just not a reality, right?
Right.
And no doubt there are times in life when free time is at a premium, but I think it's still safe to say that even when one has very little unscheduled time, there are still choices to be made about how that so-called free time is spent. So I found this article in Inc. magazine on the 7 ways that successful people spend their free time. And this, I think, gives rise to all kinds of conversation. Apparently, successful people exercise, read, take classes, volunteer, network, have hobbies, and spend time with family and friends. Now, how and why traveling didn't make that list is a mystery to me.
Maybe that gets slotted into the spending time with family and friends. It counts if it's on an airplane, I guess.
Well, the fact that it's Inc. magazine, I'm not really surprised that all of these activities involve sort of the betterment of self, like exercise, reading, taking classes, rather than, for instance, just sitting in a chair and listening to the birds.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you, that is something I've been thinking a lot about this lately. It is something that I feel like I have kind of forgotten how to do. I have so little time in which to do anything that isn't, a pre-prescribed thing that needs to get done that day, that I really, on the rare occasion when I find myself without anything pressing, I sometimes will think, of course, I mean, just because I don't have something pressing doesn't mean I don't still have a really long list, a long laundry list that often literally includes a lot of laundry,
of course,
as well as other stuff. I will think, the thought will cross my mind, maybe I should just like watch a movie for pleasure, or maybe I should, really take my time cooking something delicious just for me, which was something I used to do all the time before I had children. But I'm not great at prioritizing that, even though I know it would be good. It would actually be beneficial. It would be something that would make all the other stuff better. It's so hard for me to remember that. It's so hard not to prioritize doing the thing that I don't want to do later.
To just get it off the list. You're not alone in this, Gabi. I think we live in a culture, even post or in the latter days of the pandemic, where we are all so geared to get stuff done, accomplish, that our value is somehow tied to our output. And increasingly, I've learned from a little research that workers in general are having a tougher and tougher time making space for free time. And even when they do, they put a lot of pressure on themselves. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves to make sure that time is well spent. But also, research shows that both having and deciding how to spend leisure time itself can be stressful. Now, that's very sad, I think. Don't you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. Definitely. It makes me think about how there are other cultures that have that, certainly all over Europe, in much of South and Central America, when a siesta is built into a day, and or dinner. I think in a lot of places where, like most other places outside of the United States, where meals are where food and not just food, but the experience of dining together is supposed to be culturally supposed to be a long, drawn out, enjoyable experience that takes a multitude of hours sometimes. There's a different sort of appreciation. Also, places where there are entire seasons that are spent traveling or vacationing, relaxing. It's baked into the culture in a different way than it is here.
No, and here when we think of leisure time, we think, well, can I learn a new skill? Should I be shopping for the things that I didn't buy when I didn't have the time to go shopping?
Yep.
I need to have an amazing amount of fun. And how can I schedule all these activities in order to have the maximum amount of fun? That's pressure. And that absolutely gets in the way. I think that we are not good. We are not good at leisure. It's interesting. I'm listening to the book Sapiens, which is like taking a course and you want to take notes on every single sentence that goes by. But one of the things at the beginning of the book, the author talks about the hunter-gatherer society and how much happier they were because they had a lot of leisure time. Whereas when the agricultural revolution happened, people were really tied to the work, and everything was about the work and the planning for the work, and then having to take care of the animals, and then having to take care of the fields. And leisure time went down to almost nothing. And what impact that had on us as Homo sapiens, and how that's translated into, the way we work now. One of the interesting things is that we prioritize productivity so much that once we get time off, we can't even enjoy it. Also, the higher the paying job, the more prestigious the job, the more responsibility the job, the higher the stress, the worse for mental health, the less free time.
Yep.
So even the way we perceive and value leisure has changed, right? So it's the wealthy and the educated that complain the most about not having free time, when you would think those would be the people that could have the most if they so
Right.
chose.
Well, I mean, hustle culture is toxic. The idea that you should always be hustling, always be working, always be trying to move to the next level, and that everything is. I remember at different times of my life, and it's not something that I've done a lot of lately because of what my life has been like the last few years, but the work of networking, sort of the combination of social and professional interaction, I have found very confusing, because it's like, it's leisure, but everybody's on and everyone is thinking about what everyone else in the room can do for them. And it makes everything the opposite of genuine. It's hard. It feels like, well, what is truly connecting with someone? It's what I feel. It's what I feel when I go onto LinkedIn and I see the interactions between people. LinkedIn, sometime in the last 5 to 10 years, became this place where people, and I don't think it's necessarily bad, I just have a hard time connecting to it, where it's like, it's the work version. Now that you can post on it like you can on Facebook or Twitter, rather than just being a place to hold your resumes, it was like people have these interactions and they appear to be really genuine and great, but it's so hard not for me not to question, you know, is everyone just trying to suss out what everyone else can do for them? I think it's a place that my brain is like, well, are we playing or are we working? Which one are we doing?
Well, here's the thing. I think
And
networking by its very nature is transactional, and genuine relationships, you want to kind of get away from that notion of transaction.
absolutely. So we have some free time coming up, and I would like to know what you're going to be doing.
Well, part of the fact that we have this free time and we're going to be taking a break from publishing new episodes for a few weeks is that Fred and I are heading off to Japan. And we've been very excited. And one of the things I read is that that is not uncommon, that pre-trip anticipation greatly accounts for vacationers' happiness, that being able to plan a trip and fantasize about the trip and learn about the place you're going. And we've been doing all of the above. We've been watching movies. We watched Lost in Translation and Memoirs of a Geisha, both of which I highly recommend. We've been reading books. We've been listening to podcasts. And so we're kind of getting into the frame of mind even before we get there. So it's interesting. Some people work to acquire collectible experiences because it helps them rephrase their leisure as being productive. We are taking 2 weeks off, which for us is a very big deal because we have our own business, and when we're not here, we don't get paid, and we might miss out on opportunities that come up in the next 2 weeks for the future. I learned that only 14% of Americans take 2 weeks vacation in a row. That absolutely shocked me. I thought we were unusual in the fact that we usually only take 1 week when we leave town. Does that surprise you?
Not really. It's really difficult for me to imagine spending 2 weeks away from, taking the kids out of school for 2 weeks, or even if it was during winter break when they are free for 2 weeks, spending the entire 2 weeks on vacation. It sounds like to be honest, I don't know if I want to be somewhere other than my house with my kids for 2 weeks, but in a vacuum, or if it was, me and my husband, 2 weeks away sounds like it could be really great, but I can understand why it's a big undertaking for a lot of people. And frankly, in the old days before we had kids and Evan and I were coming up with places to go a couple weeks a year, we generally would do like a week away and then the rest of the time recombobulating. But we have gone on a couple of longer trips, and the cognitive benefit, the extent to which I come back more relaxed and feeling better is so much greater. So I definitely see the benefit. When was the last time you went away for that long?
I think it was about 3 years ago, which of course was pre-COVID. We went to Uganda trekking with the gorillas. It was an incredible trip. And what's interesting about that is there's everything that we did before the trip, kind of planning for it, reading about it. And then there's the looking at the pictures and the video that we shot. And actually, my research showed that pre-trip anticipation actually really contributes to vacationers' happiness, which is pretty evident because Fred and I have been in a very deep dive about Japan, watching movies, listening to podcasts, reading books, all that sort of thing. So I think a lot of it is about the anticipation and about the memories that you create.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time thinking about how to create core memories for my kids and how to bring them places and do things with them and create experiences for them that are going to be really special and that will stay with them. And it's really a good thing to remember that kind of stuff doesn't stop mattering just because you stop being a kid. And it also makes me think, I very much think about exercise. I get up pretty much every morning at 5:20 so that I can exercise and caffeinate and all that stuff before my kids get up. And it's a sacrifice that I make for something that is good for me, and is going to make me feel better and be more balanced. And there's no reason that logic should not extend to other forms of self-care.
It's interesting that you mentioned, Gabi, that it was a sacrifice, but it's also giving yourself a gift. I mean, getting up at 5:20 in the morning and having a cup of coffee and exercising is a gift to yourself. And if you get one thing from this podcast, it's that we really feel strongly that you need to do things to keep yourself healthy physically, mentally, and in every other way, which is why we are doing this episode on free time and taking the next few weeks off of all the F words. So we invite all of you to listen to episodes you may have missed and know that we are coming back, and we are coming back strong. In fact, our first episode after free time, after we take some free time, is going to be on fork in the road, because who hasn't found themselves at the crossroads and trying to figure out which way to go? That is a hard decision to make whenever it happens.
Thanks so much for listening. You can hear all the F words anywhere you get your podcasts. Please rate and review us.
And you can follow us on social media. We're on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram at allthefwordspod. Have a good week. Have a good 3 weeks.